Okay, welcome back to Cork Stories, which is a podcast in association with Pieta House for Mental Health Awareness Week. We've been chatting to various people that have been very open and honest about their mental health struggles and have shared their stories and have definitely inspired me and others. So I'm delighted to finally meet our last guest today, which is the fantastic Cliona O'Hanlon. Thank you so much for deciding to talk to us today.
And thank you so much for inviting me on. I'm delighted.
And it's so nice to finally meet you because I think I've been following you on Instagram for like a year, and I was trying to think earlier, how did I discover your page? And it was definitely through someone else that was talking about, I suppose, like being woke, which is like my favourite phrase of this year. And like I'd say I watch your stories every day, and every day I react to it being like, she gets it, I love her. I'm learning something new from her every day, because you're just so inspiring, because you know, you talk about self-care and the importance of self-care, and it's something that some of us maybe haven't discovered yet or haven't realised yet, and it's something that I became so aware of in the last year. So that's why I relate to it so much when you're talking about boundaries and you're talking about the power of meditation and having time to yourself and all these things that before, I suppose, if you're, I don't want to say trapped, but like, you know, if you're a person that is kind of ridiculed by society and what other people think of them, and then you're not acting for yourself, and you've been told, if you do this now, you have to do this, and you don't do this, and then when you kind of take control of yourself and you say, oh well, actually I don't have to do that, it can be very powerful.
Yeah, liberating. Yeah, I think, you know, something like this, the self-care thing, I think that's kind of starting to change. I think it would have been very kind of perceived as, you know, almost vanity before, but actually in modern day society, it's so necessary. Even just from a well-being perspective, the foundational stuff, so that you can show up as your best self on a daily basis. Yeah,
and that's so important. And again, that's something I learned this year as well, because I would have felt guilty for not doing as many things years previously, but now I feel like I'm able to work better in everyday life, because you know, you're able to look after yourself and you have these tools and things like that. But I suppose, Cliona, you could say that, like, I would call you an expert in this field now. Like, you know, you know what you're doing, and you're amazing at what you do, but you weren't always like that, and you didn't always have the knowledge that you have now. And I know you have a little bit of a story to tell us as well, and that you went through Pieta House, or you worked with them afterwards as well. So if you could just maybe bring me back to a place for those that are listening right now and maybe aren't feeling good in themselves, and maybe aren't understanding maybe what we're saying about self-care and self-love, because that's something that takes a while, and that's a journey, and it's a conscious decision that you need to make for yourself. And some people in some stages of their life feel like they can't do that right now, and I'm assuming you might have felt like that at one stage, that like, how am I going to get through this dark phase?
Absolutely. And I'm delighted that you mentioned that it is a journey, because, you know, even on my journey, there's not one specific thing that I could allocate to where I am now. It was a series of different kind of choices and stuff that I made, and still make on a daily basis as well. I suppose I had two extremely, I suppose what you could call as bleak, dark points in my life. The first would have been when I was 18. I lost a baby when the baby was in utero at 6 months. And I mean, nothing in your life is ever going to prepare you for something like that happening to you. And I suppose back then there weren't as many available services as there is today. Gratefully, today we have a very we have a wide variety of services that can really step in and support people in that phase, or if they're experiencing something like that. But for me at that point, I think I was, you know, offered to go to a counsellor, didn't really gel with the counsellor, so decided it was absolutely rubbish, and decided to, I suppose, do what I would have learned all along from my environment and from society, especially I suppose in Irish culture would have been suppress, avoid, distract, anything but feel what I was feeling. So that kind of played out in my life in quite destructive behaviours. I would have got heavily involved in drinking drugs and just very self-sabotaging behaviours kind of all my life. I got into business when I was 24 after returning from 4 years in the UK, where I did hairdressing. Partied my life over there, but I came back and I was like, okay, I'm getting back in the straight and narrow, I'm sorting my life out. And was in business for 5 years, all of the, I suppose, the trauma I wasn't dealing with was coming up in kind of destructive ways in my leadership style. It ended up my business partnership going separate ways. Again, experienced another bit of turbulence, massive confidence knock. It was a very public
Yeah.
affair. But I went on to open my second business, All Dolled Up, which was gratefully very successful. A year into that business, I got pregnant again with my daughter now, Sienna, and I was one of the most annoying pregnant people ever. I was just like everything was fabulous, and I suppose really I kind of anticipated that life after baby was going to be absolutely amazing. I was seeing all these pictures on Instagram of all these yummy mummies meeting up for coffees and going to these baby groups. And Sienna came along on Friday the 13th. And my experience afterwards was very different to what I thought it was going to be. I started again to feel extremely low. I was getting very paranoid about even people touching her. I was consumed with thoughts of her dying. And I didn't really understand at the time what I was experiencing. I know there was postnatal depression there, but I didn't realise to the extent of what was actually going on. And kind of on reflection now, when I look back, I really feel it was all of the suppressed trauma from the death of my first baby coming up to be healed as it does. I just didn't have the tools and the skills or the support around me because I wasn't speaking about it, besides my husband, to really navigate that space. So I suppose after about 9 months of this and, you know, I suppose projecting outwardly to the outside world, which if you look back on my Instagram account, you'd see it really looked like I was living my very best life. I had a really thriving business that was growing. I was putting on an extension onto it. I was married. I had a home. I had my baby. I was socialising occasionally. My life looked perfect, but that wasn't my internal reality. And after Christmas, it'll be 3 years ago now this Christmas, and having gone through a period of trying to, I suppose, reclaim a part of my life where I felt most like myself. I had been going out and socialising quite a lot, just getting into kind of destructive behaviours again. My husband sat me down and he was like, "Look, Lee, I'm really concerned about you. Like, do you think maybe at this time it's probably, or at this point it's time to go seek external help? I'm finding it challenging to cope with what's going on."
Okay. And that must have been a massive, kind of shock to hear that from someone so close to you, like, oh, someone else is really noticing what's going on with me.
Yeah. Well, I suppose he was the only person that saw the reality of how deep it was after getting, you know. So I did. I went and I visited my local GP, and I was telling her and was explaining to her how I was feeling, and I kind of confessed that I was having suicidal thoughts. And I had attempted suicide after the death of my first baby, so I briefed her on my history. And she wrote me a prescription for antidepressants for 6 weeks and told me to come back in 6 weeks. So when I left the doctor's surgery that day, I was sitting in my car. It was like a typical January now. The rain was lashing down. I was like, what a metaphor for my internal reality. And I kind of actually felt like the system failed me. I kind of felt like, you know, is that really the only solution, to just go and take medication? Is there anything else that I can do? And I felt really disappointed at that point that there was no alternative therapies offered. I went home, discussed it with my husband, and he had suggested going to visit Pieta House. I was kind of shocked, to be quite honest. Immediately I was like, I'm not the type of person who needs to use a service like that. Sure, what would I be going there? I'd be wasting someone else's space, and they'd think that, you know, I was just being ridiculous. All the self-judgment, self-criticism was coming up at that point. Little did I realise that was the beginning of a massive change for me.
Yeah.
So I did. I was still very reluctant, even walking up towards it was in the old premises. Initially I walked in and knocking on the door, I was thinking, oh my God, will I just turn around and run away? And I was greeted by the most friendly welcome. And I went in, I sat down and I went through my little, I suppose, the introductory the introductory form, and then I was passed on to my counsellor. And like what I could describe my experience in Pieta House, transformational. I've never in my life to that point been held in a space of just love and compassion, non-judgment, and just someone really listening wholeheartedly without any judgment, without telling me what I needed to do, without trying to fix me, and just allow me speak. And that was the first time in 32 years of my life that I ever probably pressed pause to see what was actually going on.
That's so interesting. And I just picked up on something you said a little bit earlier on your story, because like when people do attempt to do counselling, and you might be very closed off about the idea of it, and sometimes, and it's very important, sometimes you mightn't go to the right person.
Totally. And
that happened to you. And like, I feel that that's a very important message, because someone can recommend a counsellor to you and it could be like, oh, this person really worked for me, and then you go there and you just didn't gel, and that's perfectly fine. You need to find that person that fits you and what's going on with you, and I suppose just the kind of person that you gel with, like, you know.
Absolutely.
So I suppose that transformed your life then, and from there, was it a change and you realised, okay, I actually, like, something I learned this year as well is it's actually really easy to be happy if you can understand how to be happy. Like, you don't actually need that much in life. Like, everyone thinks we need this and we need this to be happy, but like, if you just strip back the basics and actually just reflect on what's going on around you, and you can think, oh well, like, I have this person in my life and this is going on for me, and like, I'm actually really happy. I'm just thinking I'm not. You know, because your head can turn and say like, oh, I don't know if, well, we're a bit bored now, so maybe we're not happy, and maybe we need to do something else now, and that will make us happy. And it's like, actually ask yourself, are you happy? And like, if the answer is genuinely no, you should do something about it.
Totally.
But like, one thing that's come up a lot in these conversations that we've been having with people as well is, it's just like, education is key.
Absolutely.
You know, once you unlock this ability to change things within you, it's obviously very frightening, because you know, you might lose friends because you need to change your environment in some cases, or you need to change your lifestyle. We were talking about the power of exercise and stuff like that, but it can also be really rewarding, because you can then discover how to respond or react to situations.
Absolutely.
And you know, you cause yourself less stress and anxiety because you now have these amazing tools to help yourself.
I think it was interesting you said there as well, just about happiness, and everyone's searching for happiness. And, you know, happiness is so individual to each person. And do people take enough time to actually define what happiness means to them? I'm sure what happiness means to you in your life is going to be very different to what it means to me. So, you know, if we don't actually know how we're measuring the happiness, how do we ever know if we're getting there? As well as that, like, my time at Pieta transformed the way I was really, I suppose, showing up for myself. It was the beginning of a road that I'm still on, if I'm being honest. I think the road to enlightenment is an ever evolving journey. You're never there. There's nowhere to get to. It's constantly evolving. I still experience challenges in my life, and I'm better able to cope with them because I have educated myself. I have gone down the route of looking at, okay, so what's triggering me? What are the beliefs that I have, either, you know, subconsciously, consciously, or unconsciously here, and try to work kind of on that realm. And it has been a journey, and one that I have to make I wouldn't even say, probably a commitment and a dedication to on a daily basis.
That's an important point as well, because someone could start their journey, we could say, but you also have to remember that it's something that you need to constantly work on all the time. And as you said there, like, sometimes you're never going to erase your problems. Or if you're someone that deals with anxiety, what someone said to me recently as well is, you're never not going to have anxiety, but you can learn to deal with it a little bit better. You know what I mean? So if you're having a situation where you're having heart palpitations, or you've too many things going on in your mind, like, write them down, or simply breathing.
Absolutely.
Which is massive, and it's something that people forget to do all the time. And that's something that you can do anywhere. If you're driving your car and you're on the way to work, or you're on the way to something that's stressing you out, like, if you just take a few deep breaths and just like help what's going on inside your body, it can be massive. You know, it's so interesting that there's all these small, you know, tricks that you can do to better yourself and calm yourself, and to have you know, a better life because of it. So if there's anyone that is watching this right now who have just been listening to your story and seen how you've come out the other side, what would you advise people to do that are going through a dark phase right now and they don't know what's the first thing that they can do?
Definitely support and speaking about it to someone that they trust. And I suppose validating where you're at. It's totally okay to be experiencing what you're experiencing. It's totally okay to be feeling what you're feeling. That's a huge message I'm advocating at the moment. It's okay to feel. Your negative emotions are just as valid as your positive ones, and there are like messages, lessons and blessings within each of them. And I mean, like anything in life, there's ebb and flow. And there is light at the end of the tunnel, as cliched as that sounds. I mean, if you feel like you are, you know, really struggling, there are services out there that offer complimentary support. Definitely for me, support would have been a major one because it was something I didn't even consider. I suppose I was really in a judgment phase of that. And one thing actually my husband had said to me, which was so simple. And I think we can complicate things so much and think that you have to do, like, you know, take on a whole new life regime. And he turned around to me and said, just do one thing that you like doing every day. And I was kind of looking at him, kind of thinking, that sounds way too easy. But I did start doing that. And I think when you are in a really dark place, you don't tend to make the effort to do the things that make you feel better. And that really started to revolutionise how I was showing up for myself.
But it's interesting as well because that is I love that. It's such a lovely message. But I don't know if it's an Irish thing or what, but like it's this opinion that we need to suffer, you know? It's like, oh, you know, oh, that's just, you just have to do that now because that's just the way life is, and you just have to get on with it. You know, even if you're miserable, you just have to get on with it. And it's like, do I? You know? And like the older you get, or the more you start working on yourself, you start thinking, do I actually need to do that? Or is it actually okay? Can I actually be happy? Can I let myself be happy? And that's another thing as well that I was trying to say earlier, is that like some people just actually can't let themselves be happy because they don't know how to, and because they've been told that, you know, you shouldn't be.
Totally. And I mean, I think I can't remember what, you probably know now, like being in this industry, there's a song, maybe it's Florence and the Machines, people become addicted to a certain kind of sadness. So like for me, what I took from that would be like, you know, even if you want to create good change in your life, it's still change. Change is into the unknown. It's doing something that you've done, doing something differently than you're used to doing. Yeah. So it's going to bring up resistance. It's going to bring up anything to help, like anything to stop you creating that change. That's just physiologically how we kind of survive. Okay, she survived yesterday, so let's repeat everything that she did yesterday. That's the way our bodies are designed. Yes. And once we can kind of start identifying, you know, the way resistance shows up for us, like for me personally, I'm very open about this, it's distraction. Social media is a distractor. If I'm trying to create change, that can be something that will come up to try and prevent me. But once I'm aware of it, I can then begin to choose, okay, well no, look, I said I was going to do half an hour of meditation, so what are you actually doing on your phone? Do you want to keep flicking, or do you want to create the change you're looking to make? Does that make sense?
Yeah, because that's interesting as well, because it is a structured journey as well. Like you have to, I wouldn't necessarily say rules because that sounds like a negative thing, but you have to like be open and honest yourself and say, okay, if I do this now, is this actually going to be good for me, even though I want to do it? Like, how am I going to feel in 2 hours time if I do that? You know what I mean? Totally. So it's like you have to know yourself more to understand if something that could make you happy for 5 seconds is going to make you miserable for the rest of your day, and weigh it up that way.
Absolutely. And another thing as well that really started to build self-awareness for me, and something I would totally encourage anyone who's experiencing difficulty or challenges at the moment, is to start journaling, start writing, start to become aware of what are the things that make you feel good, what are the situations that make you feel good, what are the people that make you feel good, and then on the contrary, what are the things that make you feel bad, what are the people that bring you down and stuff, and start by process of elimination, eliminating the stuff that really is impacting you energetically.
Yes.
That's a really good way, because you can't hide from yourself. You can, but you're not going to create change or transformation. And that's a really good way to start checking in with your daily life and seeing, okay, what's really creating a negative impact on me.
Yeah, I love that. Cliona, I could chat to you all day. And I know that you've just started, did I see on your Instagram today you're doing one-to-one training and stuff like that, is it?
I am, yeah. So I'm back taking on one-to-one transformational coaching clients, and I have just launched, or I will be launching, my online program Momentum. It is emotional codes of feminine wisdom, so it's looking at the subconscious and unconscious belief patterns for women. And I have a 3-hour workshop called Liberate on the 10th of November.
Lovely. Cliona, thank you so much for coming in and chatting to us today.
Thanks for having me on.